Hello, welcome back. I hope you're doing very well. I'm going to start making a few videos about the more complex or advanced capabilities that the Force has. In this first one, we're going to take a look at the envelope follower, which is a hugely powerful modulation tool, which I think is a bit overlooked actually. You don't see it in videos very often, certainly. So I'm going to show you what it is, how it works, how to set it up, and then 3 examples of creative or interesting ways to use it in your music. So let's get going. First thing we need to figure out is where the envelope follower lives, and you will find it under macros. And you'll see here at the bottom we have the envelope follower tab, which brings up this screen here, and it's split into 2 halves. The left hand side is concerned with the input, and the right hand side is concerned with the output. But before we get into that, we need to know what it does. So basically, the envelope follower is a device that listens to an audio signal and takes changes in the amplitude of that signal and translates them into parameter changes or modulation changes. So you can think of it a little bit like something that turns an up and down motion into a knob twisty motion. It's one way to visualize it. So as such, it needs an input and an output. So the input side on the left is where we tell it which audio signal to listen to, and the right hand side is where we tell it which parameters we want it to adjust. And this will be very familiar if you've used macros before, because this part is exactly the same. So we need to set this up, and we need to tell it what audio signal to listen to. If we just have a look at my top row here, I've got a little drum loop playing here and a pad on the second track. So what we're going to do is tell the envelope follower to listen to the kick drum from our drum kit. Now you can point this at pretty much anything. It can listen to individual pads, tracks, submixes and so forth. And you will also see at the top here it says envelope follower 1. If we double tap on that, you can see we've actually got 16 of these to play with, which is great, really powerful. So what we're going to do in this instance is ask it to listen to our kick drum. So we double tap, we go down to track, and it's kit is our track. And then we're going to go down to the pads, bank A, and my kick drum is sitting on pad number 5. So now that we've done that, you can see we've got a load of options have suddenly popped up. So we'll go through those very quickly. Gain is literally just a gain control. So it sets how big the waveform is in the envelope. So if you've got too much, if your your waveform is too big, you can dial it back and vice versa. Delay allows you to set a delay from the gate triggering, and we'll get into the gate in a second, and the envelope opening and closing. This will make sense as we go on. Gate here is basically like a threshold. You will see when I turn it, we've got this control going up and down. This allows us to set when the gate opens. And hist, I don't know what hist is short for. You won't see a change when I move that because we've got no signal at the moment. But between them, gate and hist allow us to control the size of the bandwidth, if you like, or the amount of the audio signal which is triggering the gate, and this will make sense when we see it in action. We have a little arrow here, excuse me, which gives us controls for this envelope, attack and decay, and this basically affects the right hand side. So when we've got a parameter change being modulated, attack tells or controls how fast that modulation change will start, and decay allows us to set how fast or slow it ends, and that works exactly the same as the envelope in a compressor or your filter envelope. It's the same deal. So basically we've got our kick drum triggered in here, and we press play. Now that we've assigned it, we can see that our kick drum hits are kicking in and out, but we've not pointed it at anything yet. Excuse me, sorry, I've got hay fever. The way we do that is to add an effect here. Now, if we look at our mixer on our second track, which has our pad on it, you can see that I've got a compressor assigned with a little bit of gain reduction and a very low ratio. So what we're going to do is go back to our envelope follower and tell it to affect the ratio control of our compressor. We do that by going down to track, and this time it's the pad track, and it's insert number 1, which is the compressor, and it's the ratio we want to affect. And you can now see that these two things are linked, and that's got the current ratio in it now. One thing to bear in mind here, we have two options for pre and post fader. That controls where the envelope follower is listening. So if you go for pre-inserts, it's listening sort of before the fader section basically, and post fader is after. And the reason that's important is pre-inserts will allow the envelope follower to keep working even if you mute the track, and post fader will cut it in and out with the mute. It's entirely a creative decision which of those you want to use. So if we start this running now, you can see that as our kick drum kicks in, the ratio of our compressor is increasing, and we've already got a little bit of a pumping effect going on, because as the kick drum hits, it's turning the ratio up, which is applying more or a stronger compression effect, which is giving us more gain reduction. And if we want to, we can adjust our gain. At the moment, our gate is right at the bottom, so the entire signal of the kick drum is affecting the compressor. If we go to the top, you see nothing's happening because the signal is underneath the gate level. As we bring it down, those white lines indicate that the waveform is affecting the envelope. And the more we bring it down, the bigger the effect is. And we can basically mess around with our open and close settings here until we find something we want. We like the way it sounds. That's quite aggressive. And then if we want to, we can, oh, that sounds bad. So basically by what happened there, the reason that distorted, by adding some decay, it slowed, or it basically didn't allow the compressor enough time to open and close properly because we delayed the closing point, which caused it to clip. Now, as is often the case with this sort of thing, it's quite difficult to predict what changes to these controls are going to make. So it really is a case of doing it by ear. So you can see here we've got a nice kind of compressed side chain ducking effect going on. So obviously you could do the same thing with Mother Ducker. I just used this as an example to show you how the process works because it's easy to hear what's going on. And also if you wanted to apply kind of a side chain ducking effect and you had run out of slots on your source for Mother Ducker, this is a way of doing it. But we can obviously repeat the process and have it pointing at any number of different types of effect to control. It doesn't have to be this kind of compression type thing. So what we're going to do now is look at a couple of nice, more creative ways of using it. Okay, this is where the envelope follower gets interesting to me. On track 3, you'll see we've got just a drum loop playing. So far, so boring. If we go to the mixer, you can see I've got the diode clip on there, so deactivated at the moment. If we play that now, you can't hear anything until I start to bring up the effect level, and that's when our nice kind of crunchy diode clipping sound comes in. So using the envelope follower, if we go to envelope 2, which I've already set up, you'll see that it's listening to the drum loop, and it's been assigned to the level which we just changed manually on the diode clip. Now this is interesting, if we turn that off for the moment, because what this does is it allows us to only apply the clipping, the diode clip distortion, to powerful drum signals. So without it, it sounds like this. If we turn it on, you can see that the envelope is triggering on our peaks, which is only applying the clipping or the distortion to the loudest parts or the big punchy parts of our signal. So that's on, off, and again we can bring the gate down and have it on everything, on nothing, or just on the peaks. Now this is a brilliant tool for adding a little bit of saturation to drums in a very selective way. You're not distorting the entire signal. You're not going to muddy up the bottom end. It's purely on the impact points. Now, in practice, I wouldn't use the diode clip for this. I only use this because it's very obvious to hear it. But if you were to use the distortion preset on the air distortion and apply soft clipping just to these peaks, you can start to bring a little bit of selective emphasis to your drum hits, and it really can make your drum lines come alive without muddying up the whole thing, just the impact points. Obviously you could repeat the same thing. You could also do it with perhaps modulating the treble control to bring a little bit of sparkle to the top ends. So you can see it's a way of rhythmically adding some nice saturation and impact to a drum line without messing up the whole bottom end. I think it sounds really nice when used, you know, in sort of sparingly. So that's with it, without it. Those drums sound much more interesting to me with that little bit of crunch just on the power points. Okay, for our third example, we're going to look at a way of adding some nice, interesting textural changes to a melodic part. What I have here, it's a chopped up guitar loop that's got some of it reversed, some of the samples reversed. It sounds quite nice. Let's turn it up a bit. It's quite nice, but it would get boring after a while. So what we're going to do is use the envelope follower to creatively apply some effects in a kind of organic way that fits with the motion of that. So if we go to mixer, you can see that we've got the stutter effect applied. If we bring the mix up, sounds quite nice, but it's a bit overbearing like that. So what we're going to do is use the envelope follower to bring that effect in and out in a more subtle way. So you can see here that I've got the input set to our guitar chop, and I've got the output set to the mix level of that stutter effect that we just listened to. And nothing's happening at the moment because the gate's all the way up. But if I start to bring it down, you can see that there's a point where we're only applying the stutter effect to certain parts of the audio signal, just at the peaks. And what that ends up doing is that piece of music is moving quite nicely. It's got this cyclical sort of flow. And because the mix is now following that cyclical flow, it starts to feel quite organic, the way that stutter effect has been applied. If we go all the way down so that it's on all the time, we get that quite aggressive sound. All the way to the top, there's nothing happening. But if we just start to catch the tops of these peaks, we get that nice reverse stutter effect. See, about there sounds perfect to me. We can also, if we want to, exacerbate that. If we go down to our track and to our guitar chop and then go to our mixer and pan, we can add some left and right movement to that as well. And you can hear that if you're listening with headphones, you can hear that it's panning left and right quite nicely. And if we select that particular macro, we can just dial the left and right effect back a bit so it's not quite so extreme. And we've now got quite a nice almost ping pong sort of thing going on. Now, we've obviously used it to apply the stutter effect there. We could also, in the same way, apply a reverb or a delay that just comes in and out with the peaks. The key to this is that the way that it applies the effect follows the natural up and down flow of the music. So you get a very organic, very natural way of applying effects to parts of a signal. And when you combine that with something like the drums that we've just listened to, where you're applying crunch just to the peaks, to the power impact points, you start to get application of effects that feels very natural and very organic. It's a really interesting way to kind of apply your effects. When used kind of in the right place, it can be very, very effective. Anyway, I hope that's given you an insight into the types of way you can use your envelope follower and shown you just how powerful it can be. I hope that was interesting and that you found it useful. As ever, thanks for watching, and if you feel so inclined, give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube and all that jazz. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, bye.